Welcome to the Omnidental Podcast. Right now, as you listen to this, the most resilient substance in your entire body is quietly under attack.
It really is.
And the weapon being used against it, it's not some blunt force trauma. It is actually the remnants of whatever snack you ate a couple of hours ago, just, slowly executing a microscopic chemical heist right in your mouth.
Yeah, that is a terrifying way to frame it.
I mean, but it's true, right?
It is. Biologically, it's
Yeah.
completely accurate.
Yeah.
I think we tend to treat our dental health like an annual event, like something you only think about when you're sitting in the dentist's chair, staring up at the ceiling.
Oh, absolutely. Gripping the armrests.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But avoiding the drill, avoiding those incredibly costly and, let's be honest, painful interventions, it does not start in the clinic.
Yeah.
It starts with the tiny microscopic choices you are making every single day.
Right. Or, for a lot of us, the choices we're completely messing up without even realizing it.
Very true.
Which actually brings us to the mission of our deep dive today. We are unpacking a really fascinating stack of sources from Omnidental of Arlington Heights. Specifically, we're centering around an article written by Dr. Billis Poles.
Yep. Dated April 30, 2026.
Right. And it's titled, How to Prevent Cavities Naturally. So our goal today is to dissect the actual mechanics of tooth decay. We want to understand the how and the why behind it.
Because you can't fight what you don't understand.
Exactly. Then we want to figure out how you can defend against it by optimizing some surprisingly simple daily habits. And finally, we will look at how an advanced, environmentally conscious practice steps in when those natural defenses, reach their limits.
So before we talk about prevention, we really have to understand the adversary. We need to look at this invisible war happening right underneath your nose.
Okay, let's unpack this, because reading through Dr. Pohl's research, I realized I had this totally wrong. I mean, I always pictured cavities like microscopic bugs with tiny jackhammers.
Just chipping away at the tooth.
Right? Just drilling holes into the tooth. But it's not a mechanical drilling at all. It's actually a slow chemical dissolution.
Yeah.
It's much closer to like watching a piece of iron slowly rust away in the rain.
The rusting analogy is brilliant, honestly. Because to understand why a tooth rusts, you have to look at what tooth enamel actually is. Enamel is not just a solid block of white bone.
Right, which is what I thought.
Most people do.
Yeah.
But it's actually a highly complex mineral lattice made primarily of microscopic crystals called hydroxyapatite.
Hydroxyapatite,
Right.
though.
And it is 96% mineral. That is exactly why it can withstand the enormous physical pressure of chewing ice or nuts or hard candy.
But that strength comes with a catch, right?
It does. That high mineral content is also its Achilles heel. While it is physically tough, it is highly vulnerable to chemical extraction.
And the chemical doing the extracting is the acid produced by the bacteria in our mouths.
Precisely. Your mouth is this complex microbiome. There are naturally occurring bacteria-like Streptococcus mutans that are essentially opportunistic feeders.
Okay, so they're just waiting around for food.
Exactly. When you eat foods containing fermentable carbohydrates, so sugars and starches, those leftover particles get trapped in the microscopic grooves of your teeth.
Like dropping supplies right onto the battlefield?
Yes. You are basically airdropping supplies directly to the enemy bacteria. They consume those sugars, metabolize them, and secrete lactic acid as a byproduct.
Wow. So the sugar doesn't eat the tooth.
No, not at all.
The bacteria eat the sugar, and their acidic waste is what actually attacks the enamel.
Yes, that acid physically drops the pH level in your mouth. And when the environment becomes acidic enough, those hydroxyapatite crystals we talked about actually begin to dissolve.
Oh, wow.
The acid leaches the calcium and phosphate ions right out of the enamel structure. This process is called demineralization. It is literally dissolving your armor atom by atom.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, that completely explains why the frequency of what we eat is almost more dangerous than the sheer volume.
That is a great point.
Because if I eat, say, a giant piece of cake in 5 minutes, I get one acid attack. But if I sip on a sugary, acidic energy drink slowly over the course of 4 hours at my desk...
Which so many people do.
Right. If I do that, I am holding my mouth in a continuous state of chemical extraction.
That is the crucial insight here. Enamel doesn't just give up immediately. It has this natural remineralization process where it tries to pull minerals back into the lattice when the pH neutralizes.
So it fights back.
It does.
Yeah.
But continuous unbroken acid attacks overwhelm its defenses. The mouth never gets time to recover.
Man.
And if you ignore the early warning signs of this structural collapse, like sudden sensitivity to hot or cold, or those faint dark spots that weakened rusted area eventually caves in, That is a cavity.
So if frequent snacking and prolonged acidity are essentially creating this continuous resting environment, what is our immediate damage control? How do we mechanically stop this chemical heist in our daily routines?
Well, it starts with the basics, but optimizing them.
Right, because we all know we're supposed to brush twice a day. We've heard it since kindergarten. But Dr. Pohl's article dives into the actual optimization of these habits.
Familiarity breeds contempt, honestly, because we do it every day. We forget the profound chemistry of why brushing works. It is not just about scrubbing off debris.
Okay, what else is it?
It is about the specific chemical interaction of fluoride toothpaste.
See, I really want to focus on the fluoride part because I always thought fluoride just sort of coated the tooth like applying wax to a car.
A lot of people think it's just a surface sealant.
Yeah, but the sources point out that it actively integrates into the enamel lattice.
It fundamentally changes the structure. When you brush with fluoride, the fluoride ions actually replace the hydroxyl ions in your enamel's crystals.
Wait, so it becomes a different material?
Yes, you are transforming hydroxyapatite into a new substance called fluorapatite. And fluorapatite is significantly harder and infinitely more resistant to acid attacks.
That's crazy.
By brushing twice a day, you are quite literally upgrading the chemical composition of your teeth to withstand lower pH levels.
That is an amazing upgrade. But, and here comes the pushback, the source material also hammers really hard on daily flossing.
Ah, yes. The dreaded floss.
Right. So on behalf of the listener who might be feeling a little fatigued by their evening routine, I have to push back a bit here.
Bring it on.
With modern sonic toothbrushes that basically vibrate the plaque right off your teeth and this magical fluorapatite upgrade we just got, is flossing truly non-negotiable? Or is it just a bit of, a dentist's wishful thinking?
I hear that pushback constantly. I really do. It feels like an antiquated chore when we have all this great tech. But the answer is definitively yes, it is non-negotiable.
Seriously?
Seriously. Here is the biological reality. Your toothbrush, no matter how fast it vibrates, only cleans the broad, flat, highly oxygenated surfaces of your teeth.
Okay.
But teeth are curved and they touch each other. The contact points between your teeth are tight, they're dark, and they're very low in oxygen.
The perfect environment for anaerobic bacteria.
Exactly. The bacteria that cause the most aggressive decay thrive in those oxygen-deprived spaces between the teeth.
So if you don't floss.
When you skip flossing, you are leaving a massive deposit of fermentable carbohydrates jammed right up against the most vulnerable parts of your enamel.
Oh, that sounds awful.
You're basically building a permanent acid-producing factory in the hardest-to-reach places in your mouth. Flossing physically disrupts those colonies before they can organize into hardened plaque.
Okay, I'm convinced. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Because while brushing and flossing are obviously the heavy lifters, Dr. Pohl's introduces a third, incredibly simple step that I had completely overlooked.
The water rinse.
Yes, simply rinsing your mouth with water immediately after meals. It makes me think of loading a dishwasher.
How so?
Well, if you finish eating a plate of really messy pasta and you run a quick rinse cycle on the dishwasher right away, the sauce washes off effortlessly.
Right.
But if you let that plate sit on the counter all day, the starches get crusty, they harden, and you have to aggressively scrub it to get it clean.
That is a perfect visualization of what is happening microscopically. The immediate water rinse is arguably your most underutilized defensive tactic.
It's so easy, too.
It is. When you rinse with water right after eating, two vital things happen. First, you mechanically flush out a large portion of those fermentable sugars before the bacteria even have a chance to metabolize them.
You're starving the enemy.
Exactly. Second, water is neutral. By switching it around, you are immediately diluting the acid that has already been produced, artificially raising the pH in your mouth back to a safe zone.
Wow.
You're hitting the biological reset button, preventing that crust from ever forming in the first place.
So mechanically, we have our immediate water rinse for damage control, our fluoride brushing to chemically upgrade the armor, and flossing to break up the hidden bacterial factors.
Good solid routine.
But what happens if we look at the other end of the spectrum? Beyond just cleaning, are there things we're actually putting in our mouths that do the repairing for us? Because the article has an entire section on eating for your enamel.
Diet is arguably your most powerful internal defense mechanism. We spend so much time talking about what not to eat, but the article details several categories of tooth-friendly foods that actively repair the damage.
And first up is dairy, specifically milk, cheese, and yogurt.
Right.
But it doesn't just say it is neutral. It says Dairy actively rebuilds tooth enamel. How does a slice of cheddar cheese rebuild a microscopic crystal lattice?
It is brilliant chemistry. Dairy products are obviously packed with calcium and phosphate,
Yeah.
the exact ions the acid just leached out of your teeth.
Right, the building
But
blocks.
cheese in particular contains casein proteins. When you eat cheese, these casein proteins actually bind to the surface of your teeth, forming a protective biological film.
No way.
Yes. This film effectively plugs the microscopic pores in the enamel, sealing it off against further acid attacks. At the same time, the ambient calcium in the cheese floods the environment, forcing those minerals back into the weakened enamel.
So cheese is literally acting as microscopic spackle for your teeth.
It really is.
That is incredible. And then the article highlights a second category, fresh, crunchy fruits and vegetables. Now, fruit obviously has natural sugars, so why is it listed as a defense mechanism?
It comes down to texture and stimulation. The physical act of chewing dense, fibrous foods like apples, carrots, or celery requires a lot of mechanical force.
Right.
That intense chewing action sends a signal to your salivary glands to flood the mouth.
Wait, so saliva is basically our mouth's natural self-cleaning oven feature.
What's fascinating here is it absolutely is, but it is so much more than just a washing machine. Saliva is a remarkable, highly engineered biological fluid. It is supersaturated with calcium and phosphate. When the acid drops the pH, it creates osmotic pressure that pulls minerals out of the tooth. But when your mouth floods with this mineral-rich saliva, it reverses that pressure.
So it pushes the minerals back in.
Exactly. It forces the remineralization process. Plus, saliva contains natural buffers like bicarbonate that actively neutralize lactic acid.
So you have this beautifully balanced dual biological action going on. On one hand, the dairy is providing the literal bricks and mortar to patch the walls.
Right.
On the other hand, the crunch of the vegetables turns on the salivary fire hose, which neutralizes the acid and sweeps away the bacteria. Your diet is doing massive heavy lifting here.
It is.
Yeah.
But, and we have to be realistic here, even with the most disciplined diet, the most rigorous flossing habit, and all the water rinses in the world, human error exists.
Yeah, nobody's perfect.
You will miss a spot, and when plaque sits undisturbed for more than 48 hours, it calcifies into a substance called tartar or calculus.
And you can't just brush that away, right?
No. Once that happens, no amount of home brushing will remove it. The chemical heist is locked in.
Which naturally leads us to why professional care is the vital, non-negotiable safety net for long-term health, because eventually you need someone to clear out the calcified plaque you missed.
You absolutely do.
And this brings us right to the practice behind these insights. Omni Dental, located at 305 East Rand Road in Arlington Heights, Illinois. Looking at their background, it is a deeply impressive operation.
Dr. Bilas Poles has over a decade of clinical experience. He handles everything from basic preventative care to severe dental emergencies and complex injuries.
Wow.
And the source emphasizes their reliance on state-of-the-art diagnostic technology. The goal of that tech is to ensure extreme accuracy in diagnosis, which allows for highly efficient, really conservative treatments.
And I was looking at their service map. It's not just Arlington Heights. People are commuting from Buffalo Grove, Palatine, Mount Prospect, even out from Schaumburg, Wheeling, Des Plaines, and at Elk Grove Village.
It's a huge radius.
It is. And operating Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., they're pulling in a massive demographic. You don't build a footprint like that just by doing basic fillings.
No, you don't.
But I have to be honest, looking at the massive scope of their practice, my jaw kind of dropped.
What surprised you?
So what does this all mean? Because I really have to challenge this model for a second. On the dental side, it is incredibly comprehensive. They do general dentistry like deep cleanings and sealants. They do complex implants like all-on-fours and bone grafting.
Right.
They have cosmetic services like Invisalign and veneers, plus a dedicated emergency unit. All of that makes perfect sense.
Okay, so where's the pushback?
But then I saw they have an entire aesthetic services wing. They're offering Botox, dermal fillers, microneedling. They do laser hair removal. They offer IV drip therapy and permanent makeup like microblading and lip blush.
It is a vast clinical offering, yes.
Right, but is it too vast? With such a massive menu of services ranging from literally doing a root canal on one end to administering an IV drip and laser hair removal on the other, does a dental practice risk losing its focus on fundamental oral health?
That's a fair point.
Does it become a jack of all trades and master of none? I mean, why go to a dentist for microneedling?
This raises an important question, and it is a completely fair skepticism to have. When you see bone grafting next to lip blushing on a service menu, it can absolutely seem disjointed at first glance.
Yeah, a little random.
But if we analyze the modern evolution of facial health, OmniDental's model is actually deeply comprehensive, not scattered. You have to remember that dentistry is not just about isolated teeth in a vacuum.
Okay.
It is profoundly tied to a patient's overall craniofacial structure, their jawline, their musculature, and honestly, their self-esteem.
Okay, I am listening, but connect the dots for me between a dental implant and facial aesthetics.
Think about a patient who comes in for reconstructive work, like an all-on-4 implant after severe tooth loss. That is a major structural change to their jawline.
Right, their whole face shape changes.
Exactly. Their bite changes, their facial muscles adapt.
Hmm.
Offering Botox or dermal fillers in that exact same trusted, highly sterilized, medically supervised environment allows the practitioner who literally rebuilt their jaw to address the surrounding facial muscles and tissues that frame that new smile.
Oh, wow, I hadn't thought of it like that.
It is a highly specialized understanding of facial anatomy.
Treating the whole patient. So they are addressing both the biological reality of the mouth and the structural aesthetics of the entire face.
Precisely. If you trust Dr. Poles to safely perform a surgical bone graft, you are certainly going to trust his clinical environment for microneedling or IV hydration therapy over, say, a random strip mall med spa.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
By blending advanced dental tech for conservative clinical treatments with aesthetic services, they're treating the physical health and the overall confidence of the patient in a single family-like environment.
That's really smart.
Furthermore, the sources explicitly note their commitment to environmentally conscious, sustainable dentistry. It points to a practice that is highly aware of its broader systemic impact on the patient's entire body and the community.
You know, when you frame it around deep anatomical knowledge and clinical trust, it actually makes perfect sense. It is a modern, holistic approach to the entire head and neck, not just the teeth.
Exactly.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I think we have uncovered an incredibly empowering roadmap today. Preventing this microscopic rusting process is not just one magic trick. It is a dedicated, three-pronged approach.
It really is a lifestyle shift.
First, you have to optimize those daily habits. Brushing twice a day to chemically upgrade your enamel into fluorapatite. Aggressively flossing to dismantle the anaerobic bacterial factories hiding between the teeth.
Can't skip the floss.
Never. And utilizing that quick water rinse cycle immediately after meals to hit the biological reset button on your mouth's pH.
Second is deploying your diet as an internal shield. Utilizing dairy products to provide the literal casein, proteins, and calcium necessary to spackle the microscopic pores of your enamel.
The microscopic spackle.
Exactly. And using the physical crunch of fresh fruits and vegetables to activate your saliva, flooding the mouth with supersaturated minerals to fight off the acid's osmotic pressure.
And third, having the humility to recognize that you simply cannot do it all yourself. You have to rely on advanced, environmentally conscious professionals like Dr. Poles and the comprehensive team at OmniDental to step in, clear out the calcified tartar you couldn't reach, and handle everything from structural bone grafting to full facial aesthetic makeovers.
So true.
For you, the listener, the biggest takeaway here is that your small, everyday actions truly compound. The choice you make at 2 p.m. when you reach for a snack, or at 11 p.m. when you debate skipping the floss, those tiny decisions dictate whether your enamel stands strong or slowly dissolves. Mastering them prevents a lot of future pain.
They absolutely do. And as you consider the incredible chemistry happening in your mouth right now, I'm going to leave you with a final thought to ponder.
Lay it on us.
If our saliva and our daily diet are constantly at work, actively remineralizing and rebuilding our enamel atom by atom, minute by minute, it makes you wonder,
What's that?
is the human mouth actually the most dynamic, regenerative ecosystem in our entire body? And if it is, what other natural, highly engineered bodily defense systems are we unknowingly disrupting with the modern conveniences of our diets?
Wow. A fascinating and slightly haunting question to leave us with. Thank you for joining us on this microscopic battlefield today. Keep brushing, keep flossing, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.